If you're trying to conceive and feeling overwhelmed with fertility advice, then this podcast is for you. Welcome to Don't Tell Me to Relax, your fertility podcast and antidote to unhelpful fertility information. I'm Hannah, a fertility acupuncturist, teacher and campaigner for better fertility education. This podcast aims to empower and inform you about your menstrual cycle and fertility. It's basically all that information you didn't get in sex ed at school, with the aim of improving your understanding of your reproductive health and optimizing your fertility. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Don't Tell Me to Relax. I feel like this is a well-timed episode because, and actually myself and Pilar, who's with me today, we're going to do this about a month ago. There's been a few times, and anyway, for one reason or another, we didn't get to record this podcast. We are recording it this week, and it's the same week that the Channel 4 have released the documentary called Celebrity Save Our Sperm, which if you haven't watched and you are trying to conceive or you're interested in male fertility, then I highly recommend it, because a lot of what we are going to talk about today is discussed in that documentary. And I think it really, really highlights the importance of male factor and investigating men and looking at lifestyle issues around male fertility to make positive changes. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm joined by Pilar, and I'm going to leave you to introduce yourself and tell us about what you do and why this is your area of expertise.
Hi, so thank you so much for having me over today. And well, my name is Pilar Manzanaro, and I'm a nutritional therapist. So I qualified about 10 years ago, and halfway through those 10 years, I decided I wanted to sort of work a little bit deeper into sort of understanding, the functional medicine, so the sort of like the nuts and bolts of our health. And then I certified in the States as a functional medicine practitioner. I do specialize in hormonal balance and fertility, both male and female. And as it happens, I'm sort of like working a lot more on the male side of things. I have been doing so for the last few years. So why am I doing this? Well, I guess, we've all had our sort of like fertility. I mean, the people who work in this area, we tend to have had our own little journey in fertility, and so I did. And that was about sort of 15 years ago when things weren't going right, and we were having sort of miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage. And by the time we got to our seventh, I was starting to kind of lose my head, my mind a little bit. So I was working in finance. It was my husband, very busy life, very stressful jobs. Satisfying, absolutely, very fulfilling, but at the same time, very, very demanding. So we both quit our jobs. We both, took 6 months off. We went to Spain. We sat on the beach. We ate my mom's food. Yeah. So we came back to London 6 months later, and we got pregnant.
Wow.
And her name is Grace. And 15 months later, Carlos arrived. And that was that for us, after sort of looking at, not necessarily consciously about what we wanted to do in terms of getting healthier, but just doing it sort of without thinking about it. And then, when we thought, well, this is it, we got plenty of kids, then another one arrived just by surprise. So at the end of the day, that was sort of the determinant for me to sort of, start sort of like delving into how lifestyle, how diet, how what you do to your body and how you support your health actually has a massive impact on fertility. And that's what I do, because not a lot of people can kind of like quit their jobs and move to a sunny country and sit on the beach and get all the vitamin D they need.
Yeah.
We sometimes need to do that through, all the different ways when we're still like London, Manchester, New York, wherever it is. So that's my little story.
Thank you. And do you, in your clinic, do you see mostly 50-50 men and women? Or because in our clinic, we see mostly women, but in yours, is it different?
It is different, but it used to be precisely that way. So when I started, many years ago, it was just women. And occasionally we'll have, a man or two that were like, sort of like dragged to the clinic, pretty much kicking and screaming by the partners. Nowadays, it's very different. So it sort of resembles very much what women are doing. So if there are any issues, they reach out, sometimes, with a partner, sometimes on their own. But also, we see an increasing number of men who just come to make sure that they're okay. Like, there's promise of good quality, they're in good health in order to sort of like embark in the fertility journey without having any, well, really any hiccups.
Yeah.
So right now is not 50-50 yet, but men are sort of like reaching sort of low 40s. That's amazing compared to like 10-15 years ago.
Yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because we were just talking about this before we came on, that with women, you can often, not always, but you can often look at a menstrual cycle. And we talk about this a lot, about education around menstrual cycles, because menstrual cycles give you clues about your health and can flag potential issues that you might have with your fertility in the future. So it can be a really useful diagnostic tool if you understand it. But with men, it's very, very difficult, isn't it? Because you can look at a man, we see, we have people in clinic who say, my partner is healthy, he eats well, he doesn't drink too much, he goes to the gym. So you think, okay, the sperm is okay. But actually, when they go and do a sperm test, they discover that there are issues there. And we always say to people, don't wait, get a sperm test done as soon or even before you start trying to conceive, because it's going to indicate what is going on with the body.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. So, I mean, for me, sperm and some hormone tests that I'm just going to mention in a minute are a vital sign indicator. So, because it's not just, you need good sperm and good hormonal balance in order to, to sort of to fertilize an egg and, for that pregnancy to be successful. But at the same time, low sperm count, low sperm quality, low testosterone levels, that can be an indicator of all sorts of things. So to me, sort of peak of fertility is the pinnacle of health, right? So when you see that your fertility is not working, it's not at the level that you like it to be, both for male and female, is when you really have to start digging. It's like, why is this happening? Why is my body not allowing me to reproduce? Because it's basically, at a very basic level, that's what we're here for, right? Yeah. So if your body is failing at that level, you need to sort of try to investigate and figure out, what's going on. So I agree. So testing sperm is that one of the very first things that I advise my clients to do, whether they're male or female. I mean, obviously, a female is not their own sperm, it's their partners, but it's a very important thing to do because it's 50-50. And we know this. I mean, we know that, especially when we see, the cohort of clients that are sort of around the sort of early mid-40s on the female side. So we know that, the sperm is going to play a really important role in terms of fertilizing that egg and pulling from the embryo. So if sperm is so-so, or there's room for improvement, that's a massive opportunity for that couple to get to, to sort of like ease the fertility journey. So talking about sperm, I mean, sperm is massively linked to hormonal balance in terms of production, but also quality. So whenever I do a sperm test, I also recommend to do a basic hormonal test. And this is really interesting because you were talking about cycles, right? So our cycles are like, anything, from 26 to 30 odd days, it could be longer, it could be shorter. But for men, the cycles are daily. So each day, you peak of testosterone sort of comes first thing in the morning, hence, that sort of morning erection, which is very important to sort of like keep an eye on, because if it's not happening, that might indicate that testosterone is low. And then there's all the hormones that play a role too. And funnily enough, they're pretty much the same hormones that play a role in our cycle. So LH, FSH, which, most women are familiar with, especially when they sort of embark on the fertility journey. But it's very important to keep an eye on men's as well, because if testosterone is too low, LH and FSH are dysregulated. Sex hormone binding globulin, which to me, I mean, I cannot describe it as the vacuum cleaner of sex hormones, right? Because it modulates, where your hormones are. If any of those markers are outside the range, that might be an indicator that something is not working properly underneath that layer and needs to be addressed in order to reach better quality sperm.
So in terms of like entry-level basic testing, you always recommend a standard sperm test and hormone testing.
Yes.
Anything else at that stage, an initial stage?
I do actually, because I'm a big fan of having a sort of a basic blood test, like, sort of thing that your GP could do, or if you use, one of the sort of like the sort of like up and coming sort of testing companies, like a basic sort of, sort of full blood count, thyroid is very important, cholesterol, inflammation, because inflammation is basically the reason why we age. and why we end up developing chronic diseases. So if there is an underlying sort of like, even not particularly high, but it's an underlying sort of level of chronic inflammation, that's going to affect our functions. And keep thinking, keep remembering, fertility is the peak of our health. If there's any inflammation that might be affected by that your sperm might be affected by inflammation, if that is an issue. So CRP, ESR, sort of certain markers that would indicate whether there's inflammation in your body or not are really important to have to hand if we are to improve sperm quality.
And what's really interesting about the documentary, the celebrity Save Our Sperm, is that in only 10 weeks, they did the documentary of making lifestyle changes over 10 weeks. And the results were revolutionary, so, there's a lot, there's 3 celebrity men starting from a place of, various different issues, one related to DNA, one relating to number. And in only 10 weeks, they all made improvements. So it really does, what's great about that is it really does go to show that lifestyle has a huge impact on sperm.
Indeed. And, I think all couples should, sort of like embrace and make a note of that, because it's incredibly important. We can work on egg quality. I was going to say improve. I mean, we cannot measure egg improvement unless, there's a pregnancy that comes to term. However, with sperm quality, give it 10 weeks, give it 12 weeks, and then you see the improvement. And it's something that it's incredibly powerful, because you can start with whichever quality sperm, but after 12 weeks, after you've changed your diet, your lifestyle, you've addressed, it could be inflammation, it could be high blood sugar, it could be your liver not working as it should be, you should see the results.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly rewarding to do the sort of like 3 months of changes, because you end up in a much, much better situation and you can measure it.
Yes, absolutely. So in terms of nutrition, so as a sort of general rule, what are the things that we should be avoiding, or what are the things that can kind of negatively impact sperm?
That's the easy way to describe what to do with sperm, because so making a list of the things that they should be eating. I mean, it's very long, but so the things to take out are the usual suspects and a few other bits. But the usual suspects would be too much alcohol. In fact, if they can go teetotal for a few months, it's the whole health is going to benefit from it, right? Sugar, because sugar is incredibly pro-inflammatory. Saturated fats, because they're very pro-inflammatory. And also, if there's any excess weight, dropping sugar, dropping alcohol, dropping saturated fats might help reduce that visceral, that abdominal fat. And we all know that having fat around your belly is not great, because it stuck to the organs, right? And also, something most people might not know is that it's metabolically active, that fat. So that's going to affect your hormonal balance. And the more fat you eat, the more sugar you eat, the more extra weight you carry, the more testosterone you're going to be metabolizing or aromatizing into estrogen, right? You're in a more estrogenic sort of state, which is definitely not good if you're a man, right? Trying to improve your sperm. But at the same time, the more fat you carry around the middle, guess what happens? Increases the temperature of the area. And sperm and high temperatures don't go well together.
Yeah, that was very well documented. Yeah.
So basically, sugar, alcohol, processed foods, and basically too many refined carbs. So anything that is on the inflammatory side. So people ask, do I need to give up red meat? My answer tends to be not really, because as long as it's good quality, it's not particularly fatty. So there's a massive difference between a burger and a steak.
Yeah.
Or a burger or a low-fat organic meats, right? So if you eat a lot of burgers, and those burgers, come with the cheese, they've been sort of like fried or grilled with not particularly good oils. The bread will be white and would have sugar in it, right? And God knows what else, right? So it's nasty. However, if you make yourself an amazing shepherd's pie with low-fat red meat, organic ideally, tons of veggies, that's actually a good thing. And also, we need some iron in order to balance our hormones. So at the end of the day, it might not be that much of might not be a bad thing at all. Now, so we talked about sort of things that pro-inflammatory and we should take out. So if you take that out, what do you put in? Veggies, loads of them, right? The more colors, the better. About half a plate of them every time you sit down to eat. So I tend to aim for a balanced diet, anything that is out of the ordinary. So, call it a keto, call it a paleo. You might need that because your health requires it. Like, either your mitochondria is not working and you need more fat, or, you don't digest carbs well. In that case, okay. Because if there's any foods that are upsetting that balance, any foods that are increasing inflammation or making you not feel well, they should get out straight away. Yeah. But if not, a balanced diet with about half a plate of veggies, the more different colors, the better, focusing on things that are high in nutrients that support your liver, because we're going to link in toxins in a minute, right? So your brassicas, your onions, your garlic, all of those things. And by the way, brassicas, I mean broccoli, cauliflower, kale, watercress. All of those things are great to support how our liver is chucking out all the rubbish what we put in our body. But very importantly, it's not just toxins; it's the hormones that we've used and they're sitting about waiting to be excreted. If we don't metabolize them and excrete them, they come back. So you get in some sort of Armageddon of hormones that might not be conducive to good fertility. So tons of veggies, different colors, the more the better. Then a quarter of a plate, so that's half the plate, another quarter of a plate, unrefined carbs. So whole grains, the sort of the brown stuff, the roughage. So, sweet potatoes, wholemeal bread, if you're okay with gluten, brown rice, quinoa, millet, all of those things, incredibly good to keep your gut going and eliminating toxins, reducing inflammation. If you eat anything from the carb world, like, say gluten, rice, and you bloat, you feel sluggish, you don't feel great, that's definitely not for you. It's pumping up inflammation. Stop it. But find something else that's not affecting you. And then protein. We need protein because at the end of the day, sperm has got a huge amount of protein in it, right? So healthy protein. So your beans and pulses are great to sort of support your hormonal balance. Organic chicken, organic red meat, fish, and seafood. Bit of moderation there because there's a lot more toxins in the sea, in the oceans than there was of like 5-10 years ago. So still eat it. Try to eat wild, organic if you can. But just sort of balance all that. And then how do you put all that together? Good fats, extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, avocado oil, avocados themselves, nuts and seeds. So that's the sort of diet that I tend to promote with, I guess, an emphasis on a bunch of nutrients that are very important for sperm production. Zinc, which is coming from sort of red meat, green leafy veggies. That's a great combination. Pulses, nuts, seeds, and shellfish. But in moderation because of the toxins, and also certain religions don't allow it. So sort of veer towards the other foods. And selenium is fantastically important. So where do we get it from? Brazil nuts, couple a day. Absolutely amazing for both male and female, especially if there's any sort of thyroid issues. And salmon, but salmon, environment is an issue, might have toxins, so maybe once a week.
Yeah. And what about, just following on from that, what about supplements then? Do you recommend supplements to people? Because we often hear lots and lots of people coming into clinic with a very long list of supplements that they are on. And sometimes I feel like it can be counterproductive to sperm.
So just think about, it's not that you're doing too much antioxidants, right, through supplements. I mean, you could be, and you'll be excreting them, right? But the more you put in that your body doesn't need to use, or the more you put in that it's got fillers and additives and the capsule and this and that, your liver is going to have to check that out. Yeah. So your liver metabolizes it and then your gut's got to process it. So if you don't need it, do not take it. Because also high doses on a very sort of on a long-term basis might actually have negative effects, because nutrients are supposed to be eaten in combination with with different foods. But if you kind of put therapeutic doses in your body for a very long period of time, sometimes there might be issues. So I do see the same case when I get a list that is kind of it's like a scroll thing, and I tend to rationalize that. But I don't do it in terms of like, okay, you're coming to me for male or female fertility. This is your list. No, I look at where are the gaps. Let's fill them up, right?
Yeah.
So things that I not always, no, well, almost always recommend. A few different antioxidants, but I do look at that at the diet and see what they're not having. Vitamin C is a very gentle one. Worst thing that can happen is you get a bit of a loose bowel movement. If you do, we cut by the dose. Yeah. Vitamin C, you can do a little bit of CoQ10, so ubiquinol. Because we know and research shows that it really sort of supports the mitochondria of the cells, and we're eggs and sperm cells, right?
Yeah.
It's incredibly important. However, I do try to do as much as possible through diet.
Yeah.
That basically is liver, eating liver, which is not to everybody's taste, right?
Yeah.
I must say I struggle with that, but if I put it with some good quality mince and I make a chili con carne, I actually think it adds to the flavor.
Mm.
Some people love sort of chicken liver pate. Why not, right? But if not, some ubiquinol is a good addition. A lot of the doses that people come to me with are like around 600 milligrams. Is huge and it's very, very expensive. I'm not quite sure we can absorb that much. So I do use high doses when we get, we got 6 months to turn this thing around because they're heading for IVF. Eggs are for a non-quality, we're hitting 40-ish. But if not, I sort of try to do smaller doses and do more through diet. Other supplements, I mean, zinc and selenium are great, but also they're metals, right? The minerals. They're not metals, they're minerals. So if we put them in high doses, your liver might actually have to sort of work harder at eliminating them. Have a look at the diet. Let's see how much they needed. Let's see if the thyroid might need a little bit of support because these two nutrients support the thyroid as well, and then put them in. All the supplements that are gentle and typically have no side effects, omega-3s, again, they work on that membrane on the cells. They make it pliable. They allow the cell to take on more nutrients. Also, they're great for hormonal balance. They are anti-inflammatories. They can work on your blood sugar. So they've got a lot of benefits, and typically we learn them because we need to have a good ratio or an optimal ratio between omega-3 and omega-6. Omega-3 will be your chia seeds, it will be your some nuts and seeds, and it will be your oily fish, which we're eating less and less of. Whereas omega-6s are all the vegetable oils, all the refined foods, all the processed foods. So the ratio tends to be inverted. So adding an omega-3 tends to be quite beneficial regardless. And then there's certain amino acids. So, L-carnitine, this arginine, they're brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant, but you need to know if they need them.
Yeah.
Especially arginine, I mean, I find that works beautifully when there is motility issues.
Okay, so for motility issues, okay.
And also when there is, because L-arginine is the precursor to nitric oxide. And when those two are low, you might actually find that erections are a little bit softer. They're actually not happening. That's a great symptom. Well, it's not a great symptom, but it's a great thing to know if it's because then you can supplement with a bit of L-arginine and see if that happens things, if that helps things. Because at the end of the day, when there's a ED, erectile dysfunction, blood flow to the area is not great. If that's happening, sperm is not going to be of the best quality either.
So that's some good general supplements, but really, I guess what we always say is it's so individual, isn't it? Because like you say, we've got to look at the whole person, you've got to look at their diet, and you've got to sort of get some professional advice and information. It's money well spent, is what we always say in clinic.
It is, because also it's the quality of the supplements themselves, right? It's like sometimes, you can go to Boots and come out with like a bucket load of them for 20 quid.
Yeah.
And they might be, I mean, they would do very little for you and they might actually be counterproductive. Whereas if you get a much higher quality supplement, you would probably need less for a shorter period of time and it will work.
Yeah.
So getting some advice on that extent can be very, very useful. And reading the labels, I mean, even good brands. I mean, yesterday I was looking at something that I thought, wow, it looks amazing. And then when I got to the very small print, like, oh God, it got sugar in it. It had cane sugar, which I thought was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Very well renowned brand of supplements.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, sort of have a good look at what's in there. And then in terms of supplements, vitamin D, we need
Yes.
vitamin
Yeah.
D. We
Yeah.
all need vitamin D. I mean, vitamin D is going to support your immune system if there's any issues with immunity around sperm production, and it really helps with both motility and quality and hormonal balance.
Yeah.
Make sure your levels are right. Over supplementing, getting way over 100 nanomoles per liter might not be the right thing to do, because it can affect your hormonal balance in a negative way through that sex hormone vacuum cleaner that I mentioned before. So, have a test,
Yeah.
and that basic sort of blood test, are your vitamin D, see where you are. If you need some more, add it.
Yeah. Okay. Great advice. And in terms of where do you stand on like toxins, like environmental toxins, like plastics, chemicals, products that we use? I mean, it's kind of like a whole other world of stuff to think about and worry about. Like, what's some good, basic, achievable advice, given that we live in a world that is full of them?
Okay, so I think my first piece of advice on this is like, do not stress about it, right?
Yeah,
We are equipped with an amazing filter within our body, and it's called the liver. Support your liver. Don't hammer your liver unnecessarily. So try not to eat processed food. Don't drink in excess. If your hormones are not well balanced, you try to balance them. Eat all your fiber, eat all your brassicas. So the filter works, right? Now, it's an equation. What you put in, how you process it, how you excrete it. So how do you excrete it? So after it goes through the liver, look at the gut. Are you pooing? Are you pooing like a pro? Are you pooing at least once a day, right? If you are on the constipated side, you're seeing that those toxins are sitting in the colon and they're being reabsorbed.
Yeah.
At the same time, drink plenty of water. So that's the let's check this out sort of side of things. Now, let's not put too much in. As you say, it's really difficult. I mean, think about the environmental toxins. I mean, just sort of like, walking around, if you live in a city and you don't live in the middle of the countryside, you're going to be inhaling certain toxins, but your liver will be there to sort of like help you sort of like remove things. Now, what can we do? What's under our control? Filter your water whenever you can. Try to avoid drinking out of plastic bottles.
Yeah.
Try not to use the microwave. And if you absolutely must, do not put plastic in the microwave. Yeah. So there's plastics that you can sort of avoid, from that point of view. If you when you go to the supermarket, try to avoid buying things in plastic. You are going to have to buy some, because otherwise you will walk away with a loaf of bread, right, from the bakery, and that's it. But if there's a choice between getting your salmon off the sort of like the freezer cabinet, or the fridge cabinet, or going to the fish counter and getting it like freshly cut and putting a plastic, and then sort of like getting it out of the plastic as soon as you get home, do the extra 10 minutes. Yeah. If you're buying beans and pulses, they come in glass jars. If you're buying, say anchovies, for example, which are an incredible food because they're full of all sorts of good things. Not everybody's taste like the liver, but hey, try to buy glass jars as well. And then look at the labels. If you start looking, if you look at the labels of the food that you're about to eat, and it's got things that you don't recognize, things that are longer than 3 words, things that start with an E, put it back quickly, walk away. Let's find something else. Yeah. And then that brings us to toiletries. We need to wash, right? But do we need all the cosmetics, all the products that we're using nowadays? Probably not. Do we need to use perfume? Do we need to use aftershave? Do we need to use a hair mask every 3 days? Do we need to moisturize? If you need to moisturize, try to find something that's a little bit cleaner. So there's loads of new brands that are much lower on the chemical front. So I'm not going to sort of do any sort of marketing here, but there's loads of new brands, and even the usual sort of like more high street brands, they tend to have products that are less chemically heavy. So there is something called the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15, and there's a Quango in the States that basically analyzes pretty much every cosmetic under the sun, and they tell you what's good and what's bad. It's very difficult to find something that gets a green light on absolutely everything, but you've got to take a view. So my recommendation tends to be reduce what you don't need. I mean, like, men is in some cases slightly different, but for women, it's like, do you really need to paint your nails?
Yeah.
For men is, do you really need that aftershave? Do you need to use that spray deodorant? Can you get a roll on? Can you get that is less chemically intensive? So just try to reduce what you can, but because we can't eliminate absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Support your liver, support your gut, make sure that things are getting out. That brings to the organic sort of discussion. And organic food is brilliant, but it's very expensive. And you can find everything in organic form. So my view there is go and have a look at this Dirty Dozen and Clean 15. I'm happy to send you a link and you can share it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It's very useful because it is American, but food is global, and the chemicals we use are pretty much very similar, right? So try to stick to organic with the Dirty Dozen, and typically they have like spinach and strawberries and blueberries. And I mean, there's things that the thicker the skin, like avocados, pineapple, melon, watermelon, the cleaner inside, right? So don't waste your money there. Put the money in the things that you cannot really peel, because I don't think anybody can peel a blueberry. Also, the majority of the antioxidants are the skin anyway.
Yeah.
And then that brings us to protein. So you can wash, you can peel, a potato, you can, but you cannot do the same thing with a chicken. So if you're going to put your money somewhere, buy organic protein, organic eggs, organic dairy if you have in dairy, organic red meat, organic fish or wild fish, because those chemicals will be very difficult to avoid. If you're very concerned about your exposure to toxins, fish is getting more and more and more plastic, so limit it a little bit. And I leave that up to my clients, because say for example you don't eat any of the animal protein, so you have to balance it. It's like, well, there's no other animal protein there, but there might be a little bit of plastic. Okay, let's support the liver and have the fish.
Yeah.
So you just need to sort of look at each case individually. So I think the bottom line is it's not good for you, but let's be rational about it, because we live in this world, right? And you can get obsessed. Getting obsessed is probably much worse than not doing anything about it.
Yeah. And any other lifestyle sort of tips or advice for sperm health as well? So we've covered like nutrition, we've done supplements, we've done toxins. What else do we need to be thinking about to look after sperm?
So two really, really important things. The first one is sleep. No one's to be sleeping enough these days, right? And sort of like manage on 6 hours. If you wake up and it's a bit of a struggle, if you're feeling tired, which is normally the case. I mean, there's some people who actually kind of thrive on 6 hours. It's not the norm, right? If you're not sleeping enough, if your quality of sleep is not great, if you're going to sleep, if you're going to bed too late, you won't be missing out on, sort of the peak of melatonin, which is a great antioxidant. But also, you're not giving your body those hours to rest, relax, do not produce any hormones. Take a break, right? So, and also remember that we detox during the night. So the less time you spend sleeping, the less time you're going to start, you're going to be supporting, excreting those toxins. So sleep is fundamental. Good sleep hygiene. Put your phone not down, but outside the bedroom. So try to avoid being on screens an hour before bedtime. Do not drink coffee sort of, from 4 o'clock onwards. Try to have a bit of herbal tea, have a shower, do some reading, do some meditation, do some stretching. Go to bed when you're ready to fall asleep, because you've done a little bit of prep. And the environment of when you're sleeping is important too. Make sure there's not too hot, there's not too cold, that there's not too much light. Because I mean, especially in the summer, we like to very early, so get an eye mask. So have a look at how your sleep is and try to improve it a little bit. And that's sort of like paired with kind of stress, which is also, stress, I mean, is very linked to sleep, right? Because if you're stressed, you're going to sleep less. If you're not sleeping well, you might get more stress. So it's very important. And stress has a massive bearing on your hormonal balance. Also on inflammation, and that can affect your sperm quality. Now, stress and exercise go hand in hand as well. So good levels of moderate exercise will reduce your stress. So it says, it's a stress, it helps release stress, it keeps you fit, eliminates toxins. Brilliant. If you overdo it, on the stress front, that might be a stressor for your body because your body is not ready for it, or it's too much. And even if you're like super fit and you're running a marathon, that's a massive stressor for the body, right? It can put pressure on your gut, it can put pressure on your hormonal balance. It produces a ton and a half of oxidation. So moderate exercise, amazing, please do it, right? If you're sort of trying to conceive, the last thing I want you to do is start training for a marathon. So moderation is the key. So I guess it goes back to balance again. I think that, the key for fertility is balance. I mean, if you balance your life, if you balance your diet, you balance your hormones, then you get to that optimal fertility. So balance your exercise, balance your sleep, try to reduce stress.
And anything around heat, around sort of, like pants, laptops,
Laptops, yes.
All that kind of like heat business.
Yeah. And I think, most people understand that, putting your laptop on your lap is not a good thing, right?
Yeah.
But it's the phone that gets me,
Yeah.
right? Because your phone tends to go on your back pocket, and especially if you're a man, right? Because you were more, didn't wear more trousers than women. So be careful with that. Don't keep your phone so close to your genitals. Try to get away. Not just because it overheats sometimes, especially if you're using it for a long time, but the radiation itself. Yeah. Further away, the better. And then heat, in terms of sort of like wearing very tight clothes, very tight underwear, especially if it's not cotton, if it's not breathing, that's not going to help, right? So taking very hot baths is not going to help, because one fact that the majority of the population might not know is that sperm itself does not carry any antioxidants. It's very, very unprotected. So the fluid that they swim in, seminal fluid, protects it. But at the same time, if you increase the heat, I mean, it's not that you cook it, it's not as crazy as that, but you harm the sperm and you harm the fluid in which it's swimming. So it's definitely not a good thing. So loose cotton underwear. There is there's some underwear that kind of like it's said to sort of lower the temperature of the testes. Why not if you buy a new underwear? But if not, loose cotton, try to sleep either with loose pants or in the nude, why not? And just sort of try to lower the temperature. If you drive a lot, that can be an issue as well, right? Because the car can be hot. You're sitting on your genitals for for hours on end. That's not great time to take some breaks. And at that point, definitely don't work like lycra pants, right? Definitely not. Just kind of get something nice and loose and try to get a little bit of ventilation. And that, I don't know if you're going in, still there's a little bit of time, but that brings me into cycling, which is very popular. And a lot of men really absolutely love it. It's a tough one, right? Because you don't want to sort of like give up your favorite exercise. You don't want to stop exercising, but at the same time, you want to spend 5 hours wearing lycra pants on a bicycle sitting on your testes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, things around that as well. Don't do it every day. Do a little bit of running instead. Get a massive fan and put it in front of you. Try not to cycle in sort of like those fancy sort of like Rafa, sort of like cycling gear things. But it's definitely, the less, the better. But then you have to find a different exercise.
Also, I always say to people, this is why it's really good to do sperm testing, isn't it? Because you can do a sperm test, you can see what's happening, and you can see, if there are areas, if you're a cyclist and you've got problems and you stop cycling and your sperm gets better, great. If you're a cyclist and your sperm is fine, then because it's different for different people. So testing really does give you so much information and empowers you to make good decisions about what works for you.
Indeed. And just, I guess, one last word on testing, because we talked about testing the sperm, testing hormones. There's another couple of things that, I mean, anyone who's kind of embarking on the fertility journey has probably heard about at least the DNA fragmentation, what kind of tells us what the DNA is like inside the sperm. Absolutely fundamental, because at the end of the day, DNA is what's going to fertilize that egg, right? And if it's wonky, it's not gonna be good news. There's one of the tests that sometimes we do at the very beginning, but sometimes I do a sperm test and then I check on that, and it's a test for infections.
Yes. Yeah.
So, for females, we tend to do a vaginal swab. We might do a urine test to check for uroplasma, myoplasma. For men, it's equally as important. And if you're trying to conceive, you're going to be having unprotected sex. If you have it, your partner might have it. You take antibiotics, you do your probiotics, and then you go ahead and have unprotected sex again. You might get it back if it came from there, or if you pass it on to him or her. So watch that space. Make sure that if there's an infection, you do treat it either through antibiotics or antimicrobials, depending on time. And antibiotics might be the easiest route. And importantly, retest. Taking antibiotics is nearly a magic pill, but sometimes it's not, right? Yeah. So if it's not been eradicated and it's still there, you think you're okay, but you're not. So it's really important that you retest to make sure that it's all gone.
Yeah. Pilar, that is absolutely jam-packed, full of information and help, which I know people are going to find really, really helpful. So I'm going to put the details of how to get in contact with you on the show notes. So thank you so much for all your time and for sharing all your amazing knowledge with us, because that is amazing. I said amazing quite a lot there, but thank you so much for your time and your experience. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it. I mean, captive audience and talking about, one of my favorite subjects. I mean, yes, and shut me up.
Okay, everybody. Well, thank you so much for listening. I really hope this has been helpful. As always, we would be so grateful if you could give us a review either on Spotify or Apple, wherever you list. It really does make a difference. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. If you've enjoyed listening to this and want to find out more, then come and join my free community in Facebook. We have loads of resources. You can catch up on all our previous webinars and be the first to know about forthcoming events. To sign up, just follow the link in the show notes. And if you'd like to work one-to-one with myself or one of the team, then please see our website, hannahperm.com, where you can book in directly or organise a discovery call to find out how we can support your fertility and your reproductive health.